Modern Horizons 3 is coming out soon, and the Commander pre-constructed decks look amazing. But there's one Commander that I'm personally so excited to build. Hey everyone, my name is DJ. This is the Jumbo Commander YouTube channel, and Modern Horizons 3 is poised to be an amazing, impactful set. And these Commander pre-constructed decks are going to be so cool. It's early, but the most hype is revolving around the Eldrazi Incursion 6-color, that's right, all 5 colors and colorless Commander deck. You know, Eldrazi Incursion being so popular makes a lot of sense because the Eldrazi deck from Commander Masters was the most popular of those pre-constructed decks. Eldrazi Incursion looks so cool. Let's take a look at the Commander Ulalak Fused Atrocity. Ulalak Fused Atrocity is it's a crazy mana cost. It's WUBRG, white, blue, black, red, green, but any of those can also be paid with colorless mana, making this really explosive and easy to cast. It's a 2/5 legendary creature Eldrazi with Devoid. Whenever you cast an Eldrazi spell, you may pay colorless. If you do, copy all spells you control, then copy all other activated abilities and triggered abilities you control. You may choose new targets for the copies. That means that if you are casting a huge, massive, powerful Eldrazi along with its impactful cast trigger, for just 2 colorless mana, you can double all of that up. Just huge value for the biggest of plays. Ulalak seems very cool. And this Commander deck looks awesome to play, but my heart is in love with the Lieutenant in this deck. That's the backup Commander, Azlask the Swelling Scourge. Azlask the Swelling Scourge is 3 mana for a legendary creature Eldrazi. Whenever Azlask the Swelling Scourge or another colorless creature you control dies, you get an experience counter. White, blue, black, red, green. Creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of experience counters you have. Scions and spawns you control gain indestructible and Annihilator 1 until end of turn. And I am excited to make this deck work. I need an army of spawns and scions, a simple activated ability, and suddenly my go wide strategy has Annihilator 1. Not to mention a huge power and toughness boost. All right, well, let's break down this deck and we'll figure out how this thing is supposed to come together. I think the first thing we want to look at is, do we have the spawns and scions to make this deck work? Because I can't really have a go wide strategy if I don't have the tokens and the creatures to go wide with. And the new set has given us a lot of really solid token creation. Basking Broodscale is a 2-mana 2/2 with Devoid, 1 and green, adapt 1. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on Basking Broodscale, you may create a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token with sacrifice this creature, add 1 mana. Writhing Chrysalis, 2 red green for a 2/3 Eldrazi drone, Devoid. Whenever you cast a spell, create 2 spawns. It's got reach, and whenever you sacrifice another Eldrazi, put a +1/+1 counter on Writhing Chrysalis. Next, we have Spawn Gain Commander. Great flavor there. It's a 3 red for a 2/2 Eldrazi Goblin with Devoid. When you cast a spell, create 3 spawn. You can pay 1 and a colorless, sacrifice an Eldrazi. Spawn Gain Commander deals 2 damage to any target. Yeah, these new Commander deck inclusions are so good. There's Glaring Fleshraker, 2 and a colorless for a 2/2 Eldrazi drone. Whenever you cast a color spell, create a 0/1 Eldrazi spawn. And whenever another colorless creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Chittering Dispatcher is 2 and a green for a 2/3 Eldrazi drone with Devoid, and Myriad, a 3-mana Myriad creature. And whenever it leaves the battlefield, create a 0/1 Eldrazi spawn. And you know, I like Eldrazi Confluence, but it just doesn't put enough spawns onto the battlefield. How about Kozilek's Command? X colorless for a kindred instant Eldrazi. Choose 2. Target player creates X 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn tokens. Target player scries X, then draws a card. Exile target creature with mana value X or less, or exile up to X cards from graveyards. All of these create multiple spawn tokens, which is really good, especially because some of the older ways we have to produce spawns and scions are a little bit clunky, like Kozilek's Predator. Yes, it creates 2 spawn tokens, but it's a 4-mana 3/3 and with no other abilities. That's kind of medium. Emrakul's Hatcher is pretty good. That's a 5-mana 3/3 that puts 3 spawns onto the battlefield. And then I also really like Rapacious One. It's 6 mana for a 5/4 trample, but whenever Rapacious One deals combat damage to a player, create that many spawn creatures. So it's a pretty good saturation of Spawn and Scion creators. We also have our insurance plan Scion and Spawn creature creators, like Pawn of Ulamog, Sifter of Skulls, Vile Redeemer. See, if we have a board wipe, or if we are sacrificing a bunch of our own stuff, we can then create a bunch of those Spawns and Scions. And then we also have a range of enchantments that will put a Spawn or Scion onto the battlefield every single turn. We've got the classic Awakening Zone, the new Kozilek's Unsealing, From Beyond. All of these will be reliable ways of getting these tokens onto the battlefield. And then we can supplement that with a card like Black Market Connections, because that has card draw, ramp, and token creation. They're changelings, so they're going to count as Spawns and Scions. There's one other changeling that I want to give a shout out, and that's going to be Mirror Entity. Mirror Entity could be a house in this, because a lot of our Spawn and Scion creators are just Eldrazi or Eldrazi Goblin or whatever, so turning all of them into Spawns and Scions so that they get the buff and they get the Annihilator could be huge. So Mirror Entity is going to be just like one of our chase cards that we desperately want in this deck, because it's going to super power our strategy of making our whole team huge. And then honestly, just giving them Annihilator is going to be so good. Let's talk about Maskwood Nexus. It's a 4-mana artifact. Creatures you control are every creature type. That's amazing already, because all of our Eldrazi's can turn into those Spawns and Scions. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards that you own that aren't on the battlefield. And then 3 tap, create a 2/2 blue shapeshifter creature token that's a changeling. It's every creature type. So this helps us go wide, and it turns all of our creatures that are just, Eldrazi beasts or something like that into those relevant creatures, Spawns and Scions. So I have confidence that we're going to have the tokens we need to go wide, but are we going to have the number of experience counters we need to go big? First thing is that we don't necessarily have to go big with experience counters. Our Annihilator 1 is going to just punish our opponent. You don't need that much Annihilator to just set someone back to the Stone Age. But we're going to get experience counters so easily, because Azlask just generates them naturally. So if we sacrifice a Spawn or Scion for mana so that we can ramp something else out, we're getting experience counters. If we have a bunch of creatures on the battlefield and we get board wiped, at least we're getting a ton of experience counters. I even think some sack outlets could be good, like a Phyrexian Altar or an Ashnod's Altar. Those are going to be able to turn our massive amount of creatures into mana, or something like Skull Clamp can turn a lot of our 0/1s and 1/1s into card draw. And they also happen to kill our creatures, which generate those experience counters that we want. So if we're naturally accruing a ton of experience, why don't we include some of the other creatures that will benefit from all of that experience? And maybe, facilitate that, get even more experience. So a card like Kelsian the Plague is a 3-mana 2/2 Vigilance Haste, but it gets +1/+1 for each experience counter you have. Tap Kelsian deals 1 damage to target creature you don't control. When that creature dies this turn, you get an experience counter. Kelsian could just be a late game post board wipe. Hey, 3 mana, 20/20 haste, boom, smash someone. It could just be insane, but it's the least of the amazing experience creatures we have. How about the amount of counters we can get with Azuri Claw of Progress? This is a 4-mana 3/3. Whenever a creature power 2 or less enters the battlefield in control, you get an experience counter. We're naturally flooding the board with 1/1s and 0/1s. Azuri's going to get us a ton of experience. And then at the beginning of combat on your turn, put X 1/1 counters on another target creature you control, where X is the number of experience counters you have. So we're going to immediately be able to dump a bunch of counters on a creature and turn it into a relevant weapon. There's even better. Minthara, Merciless Soul, is 2 white/black for a 2/2 elf cleric. Ward X, where X is the number of experience counters you have. This could just read hexproof. We're going to have so many experience counters. Okay. At the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn, you get an experience counter. That's going to synergize so well with our commander. We're going to want to sacrifice some things. So we're going to be getting an experience counter from Minthara all the time. And then creatures you control get +1/+0 for each experience counter you have. Boom. Just a huge power boost for a strategy that's already going wide, this is going to be amazing. We know Minertha triggers when things die, Azlask triggers when things die, but Marin of Clan Naltoth also gives us experience counters when things die. 2 black-green for a 3/4 legendary human shaman. Whenever another creature you control dies, you get an experience counter. And at the beginning of your end step, choose target creature card in your graveyard. If that creature's mana value is less than or equal to the number of experience counters you have, return it to the battlefield. Otherwise, put it into your hand. So we're going to be able to rebuy creatures over and over again, and we're going to be able to last so much longer and go wider if we have access to even more creatures. And then finally, when we have 1,000,000 experience counters, we could just win out of nowhere. Othari Sun's Glory. 3 red-white for a 3/3 legendary creature Phoenix with flying, lifelink, and haste. Whenever Othari Sun's Glory attacks, you get an experience counter. Then create a 2/2 red rebel creature token that's tapped and attacking for each experience counter you have. It's also got recursion, 2 red-white, tap an untapped rebel you control, return Othari from your graveyard to the battlefield, tapped. This is just a threat to win out of nowhere. The amount of experience counters I've been able to get while goldfishing this deck has been just so much, just more than you can imagine. So a single activation of your commander, an Othari off the top of your deck, even a Kelsey top deck just immediately out of nowhere can one-shot people. So the people can't even adapt to this amazing strategy. And you have great colorless synergy. You've got things like Ugin the Ineffable or Ugin the Spirit Dragon. All is dust, clearing the way for your crazy attacks. You've got access to every color, so whatever direction you want to take this deck, you can do it. So this deck is a curve out aggro, go wide experience counter, token matters, annihilate your opponent deck. It can win out of nowhere or it can grind people to death. It has great ramp because you're creating tokens that you can sacrifice for colorless mana. So if you don't have good lines of attack, that's okay. You're gonna have a ton of mana to do everything that you want to do. I wanna give a special thank you to Wizards of the Coast for sponsoring this video. Thank you so much. You know, Modern Horizons 3 is an epic set. There are cards in here that will be future staples for forever. They are so powerful. And these pre-constructed decks are very cool. If you're interested in picking up this set, I got a link in the description. If you're interested in playing this set, get out to your local game store, build a deck, go to a pre-release, pick up some cards, slot them into your existing commander decks. Just play a bunch of Magic and have a lot of fun. All right, guys, I have a deck list in the description, but this is not the final version. I need your help. I need your suggestions. I'm building this right now and it needs to be tuned because I have to annihilate my friends with it. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks again to Wizards of the Coast. I'll see you all really soon. Bye-bye.